How is it going, everyone? It's Caleb Limited here, and today we're going to be talking about a video game that came out finally on the Xbox Series X. It's been on PC for a while, but it finally got its console launch. We're going to be talking about Ready or Not. This is a tactical first-person shooter. It is pretty cool. It is really one of a kind. There's not any other game that I can think of that is exactly like this. Obviously it has similar mechanics to something like Rainbow Six, but it's even more complicated than that even. So this game is really cool, and if you like that style of tactical shooting, that style of breaking into houses and like checking every corner whenever you walk into them, if you like that style of gameplay, you're probably going to like this. This is, I don't want to say it's ultra realistic, but it tries to be. It tries to be very realistic, even though it definitely doesn't get certain things right, but that's okay. It's a video game. It doesn't need to get everything right, but this is a really fun game. I'm very happy with this game, honestly. I have so far put about 14 hours into it, and I am definitely going to put more time into it, and I may even try the DLC out eventually, since I've played through all the main missions now, and the little side missions that they give you. I've done all that stuff, so maybe I'll actually try out the DLC, but the main game, the base game, is still really, really good, and for $50, honestly, I think that's pretty fair. This is a really great looking game. It's a game that plays pretty well. It is clunky, I will say that, but it is pretty fun, especially if you are someone who is a fan of guns and gun customization, because you have tons of different options for your firearms. You have tons of different attachments that you can use, and you have tons of different, also, non-lethal options, which is pretty cool. You have a couple different pepper ball guns, you have a taser that you can use, you have a beanbag shotgun, you have some really cool stuff that you can use in this game other than just lethals. And the game does try to encourage you to use non-lethals against criminals, but sometimes using lethals is just more fun. But anyway, let's talk about Ready or Not and basically what this game is really all about. Yes, it is a tactical first-person shooter where you are playing in a SWAT team. You are the leader of a SWAT team, and you are going in and doing multiple missions with this SWAT team. You are leading them. You're telling them whether what door to break into, to stack up on the door, right or left. You're telling them to clear rooms. You can tell them to tie up suspects. You basically are fully in charge of this SWAT team, and you have a little radio wheel that you can use to give orders. And while that is kind of clunky, the wheels that this game uses, it's really the only way I think that you could actually do this. So you can give your SWAT team orders, and then you, of course, are the leader, and you're still walking around. You have your guns out, and you are trying to basically complete missions in a bunch of different scenarios. Some of these scenarios are pretty messed up too, so you are going to see a lot of creepy scenarios, a lot of scenarios that are unfortunately realistic, but it definitely fits the game. It does a very good job of making you feel like you are in danger at all times in this game too. I will say, you never feel safe in this game. You check every corner. You have to check every corner. You have to check every object. You have to make sure that you are good to walk into a room, because if you don't, you could get sprayed down so easily. So I do love the tactical nature of this game, and it works perfectly. If you're going to make a SWAT team video game, this is how it should be done, So I love the way that this feels in terms of all that stuff. Now, the actual gunplay actually does feel pretty darn good as well. I like the gunplay. It feels very clean, very nice. Everything feels very smooth in terms of the actual, fighting in this game, the actual shooting. All that stuff feels really good. The only thing I will complain about when it comes to the actual fighting the criminals and stuff is, for some reason, you can't always shoot through solid objects, but the criminals can, and I don't really like that. I feel like that's kind of imbalanced. Why can criminals shoot through stuff, but I can't? Don't really like that. Another thing I don't like is that there's, I'll try to show it in the video too, there's this space in between, the stairs you can see, and you can literally see someone's legs sitting there, and I was actually shooting at them, but there's an invisible wall there. So even though this game still tries to be realistic, it's still held back by the fact that there's video game mistakes there that honestly seem like they could have been easily fixed. And there's also some issues that I've noticed, and I don't know if other people have noticed this either, but it seems like sometimes characters just spawn up. I've gone into rooms before, cleared the entire thing, and I've walked out, couldn't find anyone, been looking for someone the entire time, walked back into the same room, and then someone's just in there. And I don't know if other people have noticed this. I've seen some people talk about it a little bit, so I think this may be something that some people have noticed, but I do wish the spawning was a little bit better. Sometimes it's really annoying to feel like you could check the room 2 or 3 times and then eventually someone's just in there anyway. So that is kind of annoying. So that could be a little bit better, I do believe. Now, there is another thing that I want to talk about, and that's the fact that I feel like sometimes the AI in this game acts a little bit too erratic for a video game. And again, this is kind of the balancing of realism with a video game. But like, for example, one time the AI literally, like, they can hold people hostage. They can hold civilians hostage, and you have to try and save the civilians. But one time they didn't even see me coming, and they ran up, grabbed a civilian, and just immediately shot them in the head without even looking at me. I was just like, well, I guess. So, like, but it's a video game. So they should give you a chance to de-escalate that situation, to stop that situation. Instead, they don't give you that chance, and you basically just have to give whatever grade it gives you at the end of it because you let a civilian die. And I'm not a huge fan of that. Like, give me a chance. Sometimes it just doesn't give you a chance, and that is a little bit annoying as well. At the end of each level, depending on, whether you use non-lethal or you use lethal, and how many civilians you saved and how many objectives you completed, whether finding contraband and stuff like that, it will give you a score. So if someone just runs up and kills a civilian randomly, you obviously lose on your score, but there's not really much you can do about it. There's also some missions where I just felt like it was really hard to find the objectives. There's one specifically where it is in a college, and you are trying to find some explosives, and you cannot, like, they're super hard to find. And I'm not a huge fan. Like, the beeps aren't loud enough. You're supposed to be able to follow the beeps. I couldn't even hear the beeps until I was, like, right up on them. So I don't know about that one. I did not see them the first time I played through it. And it kind of sucks, too, because when you're playing through, like, the single player, if your squad mates die, they're permadead. So, like, you basically will just get a bunch of randoms instead of actual named characters after that. So that's also a little bit annoying. Again, I get the want for realism, but at the same time, you have to realize that it is a video game. Some things are okay to be video game-like, and when you make things too realistic, it ends up taking away from the fun factor. And I feel like that this game struggles a little bit with that. It's still a great game, don't get me wrong. I'm still in love with this game. I think it's a fantastic game. I think it does a lot of things right, but I do think that they need to realize that's a video game. They need to give the players more opportunities to do things instead of making it uber realistic to the point where it takes away from the fun factor. I will say also, the graphics look pretty nice in this game. Everything looks pretty darn good. It's not quite AAA quality, I'd say, but it looks nice, right? Like, the guns look good, the environments look fantastic. Love the looks of the environments, especially, some of the different ones that you get. You have one where you're, like, in a strip club and there's, like, neon lights everywhere, and that map looks fantastic. You have another one where it's, like, the very final mission of the game, and it's raining inside a shipping yard, and it looks really good. They did a great job with all of the graphics in terms of the environments and stuff like that. The characters honestly could look a little bit better, but that's probably, like, the only area where I would critique in terms of the graphics. And honestly, graphics always come second to the gameplay, and the gameplay is really fun in this game. But even then, I still want to say, though, this game looks pretty nice for what it is. I think one of the things that gets me with the whole, trying to be realistic thing with this game is that it tries to be realistic in some scenarios and in some areas, and then it tries to be a video game in others, right? So, for example, it has a very video game themed way of finishing a mission. You have to rescue all the civilians, and to do that, you put handcuffs on every single one of them. But the problem is that sometimes the civilians aren't even in the shooter zone, so it makes no sense why you would even bother putting handcuffs on them, right? Like, in one mission, there's literally just a homeless dude way outside of the building across the street, and wanted me to put handcuffs on him before I could finish the mission. I'm just like, why? This guy has nothing to do with the scenario, but okay, I guess I'll arrest a homeless guy. Like, it's that type of, it's that type of thing where I just find it weird, where it's just like, so you guys are going to be video gamey with this, but then you're going to try to be more realistic with this other scenario. So I guess I just feel like it needs a bit more balanced in terms of being a simulation and being a video game. They just need to balance it a little bit better and, try to figure out priorities. I think that's where they need to fix things. I don't think you need to arrest every single civilian, especially ones that aren't even in the scenario and are across the street, not even doing anything and minding their own business. It makes no sense to have to arrest those ones. So I actually think it should be optional for you to handcuff a lot of these, civilians. Again, especially the ones that aren't even in the crime scene. You have that radial wheel that I mentioned earlier. You have that in this game to tell your fellow SWAT mates what to do, but you also have it so you can actually swap to different equipment, because you do have a bunch of different equipment like I was talking about earlier. You have flashbangs, you have tasers, you have lockpicks, and you're going to need to use all of those things to infiltrate a building successfully without taking damage, and it is actually pretty hard to do, but I like how many options that they give you, but the radial wheels definitely do make the game feel very clunky, especially because it's not just like one radial wheel. It's usually a radial wheel, and then after you select something on that one, there's another radial wheel that pops up right afterwards, and that can be very clunky. So it takes a bit of getting used to when it comes to the mechanics of this game for sure, but it's still, I'm glad they give you all those options, because I feel like this is really the only way you can do that is if you do use these wheels like that, but it definitely doesn't feel very polished in that respect. The amount of missions that they give you just in the base game alone is pretty impressive. You have 18 main missions to play through, and each scenario is fun. I like every scenario that you have, and some of them are pretty freaky too. To be in that situation as a cop and trying to, basically save people and rescue people, it's very stressful in a fun way. Obviously, if it was real life, it would be terrifying. But in a video game, it's stressful in a fun way. And some of the scenarios are freaky, right? And some of the things that happen in these scenarios are terrifying to even think about. There's one specifically where you're going inside a hospital, and there's literally terrorists in the hospital that are hiding as doctors, and that is a super frightening thing, because you go in there and you're trying to save civilians, so you don't always pull the trigger when you see someone, right? You gotta restrain yourself. You gotta pay attention to if these doctors are going to pull a weapon on you. It just adds for a way more tense scenario, and it's something that I haven't really seen done in any other video game before. This game really does do some things that I've just never seen any other video game do, and it tackles subjects that I've never seen any other video game tackle, and it does it in, I think, a pretty good way and a pretty fair way, in a way that is still respectful, and they do a very good job of being tasteful with everything in this game. I don't think that there's a single mission that I saw that I was just like, this seems like it's in poor taste. Everything felt very respectful as well. So while there is some dark topics and dark subject matter in this game, they handle it, I believe personally, in a respectful manner, and they did a good job with that. The actual some of the objectives I'm not always a huge fan of, because I do feel like it tries to fail you too easily. Like, if someone's running at you with a gun and then you shoot them, at the end of the day, you probably should still succeed the mission, right? Because at the end of the day, you still get the mission done. The person's no longer a threat, but sometimes they want more intel on somebody, so you have to go in and you have to try to keep them alive. But I don't know. I kind of just wish that wasn't always an option, because sometimes you get chased down and you're just going to pull the trigger if you see someone running at you with a gun. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it needs to be a bit lighter with how it treats you and how it grades you with your performance level. One thing that I kind of thought is cool is that the people that you have with you on the SWAT team actually will get disturbed by the stuff that they see, or if they get hurt in the missions mainly. Like, if they get injured in the mission, they'll actually start having issues with their mental state, and you'll have to send them to therapy before they can really help you again. And I thought that was actually a really interesting concept, and I actually thought that was actually a pretty cool idea. So I've never really seen any sort of shooting game do that either. So it's kind of cool how they kind of handle the topic of mental health in this game also. The overarching story, there is kind of like lore to this game. There's a story that goes on, and a big overarching story if you want to look into it, but it's not something that you actually really have to pay attention to enjoy the game. The story is, I think, more subtle than anything, and if you basically look into the lore, you can definitely get more out of it, but it's up to you if you want to really dive into the story more. For the most part, this game does focus on its gameplay, and I think it does a good job of doing that. I will quickly touch on the censorship issue that happened with this game as well, because when they put this version on consoles, when they released it on consoles, they had to censor a bunch of stuff to get it put on to the consoles. And to be honest with you, I don't really blame the company behind the game. I really blame the console manufacturers. I blame the console companies because at the end of the day, they have double standards, right? For example, Baldur's Gate can have complete nudity in it, it can have sex scenes, it can have all this stuff, and it doesn't, like, yeah, it adds to the story in its own way, right? And then you have Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk also has nudity and sex scenes and stuff like that. And then you have, on PlayStation side, you have The Last of Us. The Last of Us 2 has sex scenes as well. It has blood and gore. It has all these things. But for some reason, when it's a police game and it's dealing with scenarios that actually it makes sense for it to be in the story, you're not allowed to have things like nudity. You're not allowed to have blood and gore and stuff like that. And again, I don't blame the developers of the game for that. That's not their fault. I blame the console companies because they're the ones who have this double standard. So at the end of the day, I have a hard time blaming the actual publishers and the makers of this game for it because they did what they needed to do to get it put on console. I wish that there wasn't any censorship. I think censorship is bad all the way around. They censored a lot of the blood and gore. They censored even some of the topics in the game. I feel like they censored that a bit much. But again, if that's what they had to do, that's what they had to do. And it really comes down to the console manufacturers and the console companies for having this double standard. That frankly is complete bullshit. You should treat every company the same. You shouldn't have, just because one game is more aligned with, whatever agenda you have, you shouldn't just shit on every other game because of it. Now, I do actually understand where some of the PC players' rage comes from when it comes to the censorship of the PC version, because I don't really understand why they touched the PC version. I mean, why didn't you just leave the PC version uncensored and censor the console versions? That's what a lot of other companies do. So they honestly probably should have just done that instead. So in terms of the PC version being censored, they should probably rectify that and they should probably fix it. I understand, again, the console versions, that makes sense because console companies have retarded restrictions, right? But in terms of the PC version, I don't know why they censored that version too. Maybe they just thought it would be easier across the board if they just censored all three versions, but I don't know. I disagree with doing that. Overall, I think Ready or Not is a fantastic game, but also a little bit of a flawed game. It definitely could be fixed in time, or it could be fixed even with a sequel or something, but it, even with the issues that it has, it's still a fun game. Worst comes to worst, if something stupid happens where the game just kind of acts up and does something that it shouldn't, like, it just, like, you spawn up and then for some reason the AI just starts killing the civilians immediately, even though it's not really supposed to do that. If something like that happens, worst thing comes to worst, you just restart the game and you go from the beginning of the mission, right? So even with those issues in mind, I still really enjoy it. I think it's a really fun game. I love the gunplay in this game. I love a lot of the objectives in this game. I love the mission design. And really, this is the only game of its kind on console especially. And I think it does a great job with all of the stuff that it tries to do. And I'm a big fan of this game. And I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I may eventually try out the DLC, and maybe I'll talk about the DLC on this channel as well. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. But the base game does have plenty of stuff, especially for a $50 game. I think that's a fair price tag with how many missions you get, how much variety you get. You get some really cool scenarios, some really cool action, some really cool guns, some really cool gunplay. You get a lot of awesome stuff in this game, and I highly recommend checking it out. I think it is worth your time, and I'm glad that I've played it, and I look forward to putting more time into it. And the multiplayer is pretty fun as well, So if you want to play it solo, you can, but you can also play it multiplayer with your friends, and I enjoy doing it either way, honestly. So go check it out. Go check out Ready or Not. It's fantastic. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.